These got posted by Blake today or yesterday. And these are the photos that Candace put out. So she put out 6 a couple months back and then 4 more. And there was like this whole scandal. People saying it's staged, this and that. And I got people messaging me that they think that this is 2 different cars. 2 different cars. That they think it's different color seats. They're like, look at the seats. This one has wood trim. The side is different. Guys. You got to do better. You got to do better. Now, first off, these top 2 pictures look like they were taken outside of the car. So if they're taken outside of the car in the sun, the lighting's going to be different. The other photos look like they were that they were taken from inside, which would affect the lighting. Also, if they wanted things to stand out, they could have changed the contrast or the editing or highlighting so that certain objects would stand out. I can't speak on that. I don't know if that happened. But what really killed me is when they tried to say it's 2 different cars because of the seats. Because if you notice here on the bottom left, you see 2 seats that are right next to each other. And then over here on top, they're like, look above. The seats are gapped out. It's 2 different cars. It's all staged. Guys, I hate to break it to you, but this model car, a Denali, it's a 3-row. It's a 3-row. Those single seats are what they call the captain chairs in the middle. And then the back where the bags are on the bottom left, that's the bench in the 3rd row. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I had a couple messages about that. I thought it was kind of silly. At first, I'm like, oh, man, you really think it's a different car? And I'm like running the images through AI. And then right away, I'm like, oh, that's why they think that. Oh, no. They're wrong. Sorry. But, there is so much gaslighting and misinformation that's going around. And it's so crazy. This whole YouTube game is insane because there are people that are in this for different reasons. You have people like me that enjoy it and they want the truth out there and they enjoy doing research and they just want people to learn and they want people to wake up. There are people that are just in it for the money. They get the clicks, they do what they got to do, they post, they make their money and they could really care less. They kind of look at it like a job. There are people that make content because they're trying to push a narrative for one way or another. And that, again, falls into the job category or, sometimes others. And then there are straight up feds. And now everybody seems to try to consolidate these groups into 2. It's if it's somebody that you believe, or 3. If it's somebody that you agree with, you believe them, they're telling the truth all the time, no matter what. And then if it's somebody that you don't, they're full of shit. You don't want to listen to anything they say. This one time they said this about so-and-so, and you've completely written them out of your life and discredited them forever. And then there are other people that are going along with an administration or some type of, the politics or pro-police, and you're like, that's a fed. And it's really, really unhealthy. You have to realize that even the people that are wrong most of the time, even the people that are deceitful, even the people that might be feds, they're going to be right about a lot also. Nobody's going to get by on just spreading bullshit all the time. And you have to understand that. You have to pay attention to what everybody's saying. You have to use discernment. And you have to find out for yourself. And not everybody that's honest is going to be correct all of the time. And now, the longer that I'm in this, I've been doing this for about 7 months now. I've been making a lot of, trying to make a lot of friends. I wouldn't even say trying to make a lot of friends. I'm making friends as I go. And if you watched my interview, I was on Christine Feckety's show last week, and we had a phenomenal live stream. Shout out to her. She's great. And, we ended up getting into politics and talking about the 2016 election. And she was pro-Hillary. I was pro-Trump. And, we got into a real debate. And I don't think we ended up agreeing, but it was healthy. We're both able to learn more from each other. That's how you create dialogue. That's what Charlie was all about. Charlie had his donors that wanted one narrative pushed. But he wanted the people to hear the truth. He wanted the people to hear both sides. So he brought Tucker on. He had that debate with Josh Hammer, Dave Smith, and he moderated it. And he let both sides tell their side. And the side that was telling the truth came out on top. And the people that were funding the project that thought that because they're donors and that they're paying, that they're entitled to their narrative being pushed, were pretty upset. Now, the point that I'm trying to make is, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm friends with another creator or associates or just collaborate from time to time, whatever the level of the relationship is, they are all entitled to their own beliefs. They are all entitled to their own opinions. As long as I believe that they believe in their words and that they're respectful and they respect me and they're not like abrasive and just attacking people because they don't like them or being ridiculous, I'm not going to not associate with someone or not talk to them or be friends with them or work with them because they have a different belief. And, I'm not going to name any names. I'll save that for the rant that I already gave because trust me, that one I didn't hold back. I said all the names. So, spoiler alert. But, I just wish that people would get out of that mentality. I wish that people would stop thinking that everyone needs to take sides and that certain people are just always right about everything and certain people are always wrong. Because when you get that kind of cult-like herd mentality with different sides, all of a sudden they start nitpicking. They start going for hot clips. It's like, oh, well, look, this one's full of shit. He said this one time and da-da-da-da-da. You have to, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. You have to look, you got to get a baseline for what somebody's about, for the content that they make, for the message that they're trying to use their platform to spread. You can't just go by one clip or one mistake or, it's not fair. It's not right. And just because somebody is coming to a different conclusion with their theory than what you believe or somebody that you watches believe is not a reason to just write them off completely or dislike them or think that so-and-so shouldn't work with them. Because that's some Benihana shit. That's exactly the type of stuff that I don't like from a specific foreign nation. And that's the same mentality that turned me away from the Democrats. That was why I identified as a conservative. It was because of the dialogue, that you could have these conversations, that you can have conflicting views, that it wasn't just a hive mind. That's why, when people say, Joe Biden's president, but is he really the president? It's like, no, I think at this point we all know that. Even most Democrats will admit it. He wasn't all there. There were other people behind him pulling the strings. The machine was moving in a certain direction. And now, when Trump ran on transparency and ending the wars and, putting Americans first, we believed that there was a difference. It felt like that election mattered, like it was the most important election of our time. And now, a lot of the people that believed in Trump, whether it was for years and years or just that last election, and they were just giving him a shot, all of those people felt betrayed. And now I'll say we, because I'm definitely one of them. I believed in Trump and trusted Trump to some degree that he was going to do the complete opposite of what he's doing now for a couple of years, pretty much a decade. But, I felt betrayed. And I've said this before on the show. And a lot of other people have too. And now, we're getting labeled as conspiracy theorists. It's like, if you don't believe that the files were a Democrat hoax, then you're a conspiracy theorist. If you don't believe that Charlie Kirk was killed by Tyler Robinson with a 30-06 by a lone shooter, you're a conspiracy theorist. If you don't believe that the people like me that are in this making content, investigating these things, are all colluding with each other, that we're undercover Democrats that are secretly working for Russia and China, then you're a conspiracy theorist. And that's the craziest part, is that these same people that are gaslighting people like me, whether they're naming me specifically or not, and trying to act like, say that I'm a retard or a cantard, or that I'm an undercover Democrat, or that I'm secretly colluding with others to take down Turning Point USA, to make sure that Trump loses the presidency, that the Republicans lose the midterm, and that whoever runs for president in 2028 loses, and that we give power back to the Democrats, that we're really working for Russia and working for China. This is what these people are saying. Like, they're literally spreading the biggest conspiracy theories that I've ever heard or have heard in a long time that have nothing behind them. Nothing behind them. And if you don't believe that, then you're the conspiracy theorist. And I think it's crazy. I think it's wrong. I don't understand how people that follow that are falling for it. You know, especially with everything we've seen, especially with everything that came out. Like, listen, I don't know if Charlie Kirk was killed by an exploding mic. I don't know. What I do know is that pictures are coming out with hard evidence that seem to be from that microphone, and it didn't get there by itself. You know, I at this point, I won't even say for certain. I was on the fence about it for a while. Now I believe Charlie's dead. I won't say for certain that I know for sure that it wasn't staged. I won't say that because I don't know. There is a chance, you know, but I will say this. There's a better chance of that than Tyler Robinson killing Charlie Kirk with a 30-06 as a lone shooter and Lance Twiggs is not involved. Like, that is the one thing that is the one belief I have that I feel like I could put it 100% at this point. You know, everything else, even the whole stage death thing will have a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm not going to ostracize people that still believe it. Like, a lot of people still believe that, and they believe it for a reason, you know, and it's not just because they don't like this one or they don't like that one. It's for the same reason that people like Candace, people like Barron, people like you and me don't believe that Charlie Kirk was killed by Tyler Robinson. You know, they're just looking at it from a different angle. And like, this is America, like freedom of speech. Like, everybody's entitled to their beliefs. Everybody's entitled to their voice. The second you start trying to silence people or say, oh, they shouldn't work with this one, they shouldn't work with that one, like, that's everything that I'm fighting against. Like, do you guys realize that? Like, do you realize that that's a problem? It's like free speech, you're supposed to be protecting the speech that you don't like. You know, the people that you don't like, you're protecting their right to speak. Their opinions, their views, their beliefs. You don't have to agree with it, but everybody in America is entitled to their platform. Everybody is entitled to their beliefs. And at the end of the day, the truth is going to come out. The truth is going to rise to the top. You know, you can only lie and be insincere for so long until you get found out. And it didn't take long for Erica Kirk. You know, I'll tell you that much. I'll pull it back up. I knew there was no sound. I'm sorry. I told you guys I wasn't planning on playing any clips tonight.
It's interest and with velocity over the last couple of days. What is your analysis as a reporter of how the Trump administration has handled this? And what would you say is the political implications of this?
Well, first of all, nice to be back. And if you want to know why I'm not, as is our usual practice, wearing a ripped and wrinkled T-shirt, it's because I had your friend Michael Knowles on my podcast today. And as you know, he's an Ivy League dweeb. I knew he'd wear a sports jacket. So
that's right. He always dresses up.
That's why I'm overdressed. Okay, so there's at least 4 reasons why you would think the president and the administration would be doing full-on disclosure. First, it's the right thing to do for the victims. Second, they promised that they would be transparent about this. 3, the MAGA movement, as best we can tell, certainly many of its leaders, like you, are for it. But certainly, at least I surveyed I asked everyone on two-way this morning on the morning meeting, go in the chat if you're a 3-time Trump voter, say what you think they should do, and very pro-disclosure. And 4, they've handled it badly in so many ways, and just the politics of it suggests that the way to recover from such a poor handling of it would be to comply with the other 3 things. So what's on the other side? Why wouldn't they be disclosing? And the answers are not great. Either they're trying to protect people, or there's an intelligence connection that they're trying to protect, as best I can tell. I struggle, despite what I said about the two-way community, I struggle with knowing whether there's political damage here for the president. In the midterms, people say, there won't be turnout in the midterms, or his approval rating will go down. MAGA is very resilient. MAGA fights with the president sometimes and then moves on. And I don't know that this is a qualitatively different case. There's a lot of emotion around this. There's a lot of resonance around it. There are a lot of leaders, including some MAGA leaders who often disagree, who seem to agree on this. There's not much support for the president's position, except for people who he hired. So I don't really know where it's going or how much damage it will do. But I do think that the two ledgers, the two sides of the ledger seem pretty clear, and it's incumbent upon them to not put out a statement or say some things on the fly, but to have a long and detailed explanation of why they're choosing the course they're choosing, because the way they've done it so far is only arousing suspicion.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm going to keep going with that clip. That's not even the one that I meant to play, but that one's even better. That's going to set up the other one that I did want to play. But anyway, exactly. You see, now that video came out. When was that interview done? July 10th, 2025. Almost a year ago. That was just shy of a year ago. And they're talking about how passionate people are about the files and how, people fight with Trump. They get mad at Trump over certain things, but that this one is different. This one is different. And what was their response? It wasn't the transparency that was promised. It wasn't releasing the files. It wasn't accountability. It wasn't draining the swamp. It was spreading conspiracy theories. Because ever since then, MAGA has fractured. It didn't just fracture. I mean, it shattered into pieces. I mean, there's still a big chunk left, but it's fractured into pieces. And it's because he betrayed us. He betrayed us. And now, just like before, when he was trying to say that the files are a Democrat hoax, now he's just saying that we're all Democrats. And all these other content creators are saying that we're undercover Democrats. The woke Reich is real liberal. You hear people like Steven Crowder say that all the time. It's like, now they're showing the true colors. They don't believe this. They don't believe the files. Like Trump gave it to us. He gave us the files. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But I want to keep going with this. I want to hear Charlie's response.
Based on your reporting, did the Trump administration think it would go away after a day or two with this kind of Sunday night leak strategy?
They did. And of course, as you know, they're leveraging the credibility of the director of the FBI and his deputy, two people who previously were, in the camp of saying there needs to be disclosure and concerned about a conspiracy. So I think they were trying to leverage them. Did they think it would go away? Yes. Part of the issue here is, while MAGA media is quite interested, the dominant media, inexplicably to me, is not interested. Even though you've got now House Democrats writing a letter to the president saying he should put all this stuff out. I don't know why the press isn't interested in the story. It's a compelling story just as a story. The whole thing is, but including this latest episode. But also the fact that Donald Trump is split from MAGA. So there are a lot of stories about the MAGA split, but there are not a lot of stories on TV, especially where Donald Trump pays attention, even though he doesn't like the dominant media, he pays close attention. There are not a lot of stories there about the underlying question, which is, where is justice for the victims? And so part of why they didn't think they'd pay a political price, and part of why I don't think they're as concerned as they might be, is this is a big topic of discussion on Megyn's show, on your show, on X, but it's not a dominant conversation, in the country at large in a way that would put more pressure on them.
Yeah, I think that.
See, and that last part is important. He said it's not a big story at large for them to think it's important. The reason that it wasn't a big story is because the information was being curated. The narratives were getting pushed from both sides. From both sides. You got to remember something. All these, and this is for those of you out there that still vote for Democrats, still believe in Democrats, still believe that the files are just a Trump thing and just a Republic thing. The majority of the people that Jeffrey affiliated with were Democrats. Okay? Biden was president for 4 years. They could have released the files at any time. They could have arrested people at any time. When they charged Trump with all those felonies for what, whatever clerical errors is what it pretty much amounted to. They could have released the files and tried to charge him with that. Why didn't they? Why didn't they? If you've got his name all over the files, right? 30,000 times, 38,000 times, whatever amount of times he was mentioned. If he was all over the files, then why did the Democrats not leak it and allow him to run for president? It makes no sense. Why wasn't anybody leaking it and trying to charge him with SA or R or M? One of the cases. Why not? Why not? If they had it, they had everything that they need to. They had the Democrats in 2024 had everything that they needed to remove Trump from the equation, and they didn't do it. Why? Why? It's a simple question.
That's partially right. I think that it's growing. At least yesterday, I started to get non-political-ish people start to reach out as it's starting to penetrate more circles. So again, I don't want to spend our entire conversation on this, but I do find it to be interesting. I would say the last point on this, and we'll go to another topic, is this is one of the few instances, and maybe you can correct me, where it seems as if the president is 180 from his base. The only one I could think of is maybe the vaccine and the years after that, when he would go to rallies and sometimes get murmurs and even boos at times. Can you think of other examples potentially where, and how do those usually rectify? They just kind of go away as they're in addressing?
Right. Well, I know you want to move on, and I've got so much to say about the thing you
please
just
keep
asked.
going.
But okay. So first of all, he's certainly adverse with the base on amnesty, path to citizenship, path to legal status for people who came to the country illegally. So that's another one right now where he's at least flirting with doing it differently than the base. So my monologue on my show today is about how Donald Trump makes decisions. And I think he's an extraordinarily underrated decision maker. And he's extraordinarily different than the other presidents I've covered in many of the ways he makes decisions. And one of those things is no decision's ever final. He'll make a decision, and then he'll make a different decision. And sometimes it's 180 degrees different in response to it. I know that the people who feel passionately about this feel passionately about it. And I understand why. But I also know two other things. Number one, it doesn't affect their lives directly. You could say that it affects their trust in the president or their trust in his commitment to transparency or justice.
I got to stop him there because he is 100% wrong. It does affect our lives directly. You need to understand this guy, all right, the big E, the big J-E, he had strong ties to Harvard, to MIT, to what's the other one? The big one, the big business school, Wharton. It's actually the school that Trump went to too, I believe. What was it, Wharton Business School? He was so deeply invested in all of these institutions, all of these NGOs, including the Clinton Global Initiative, Clinton Foundation. His reach was everywhere. So when you're that connected with our education, with our politicians, with Gil Bates, it does affect our everyday lives.
But in the end, it doesn't affect their pocketbook directly. It doesn't affect their daily lives directly.
Oh, and I almost forgot. In 2008, when we had that big financial crisis, a lot of the people that made the most money were clients and affiliates and friends of Jeffrey. How many people lost their homes? 10 million? Jess Staley was, I believe, CEO of asset management at Chase. He was one of his best friends. He was one of the people signed on his will and his estate. And he made off like a bandit in 2008. And he's all over the emails. His name's all over the place. You could go on web right now and look it up. So when people try to act like the files were just some sort of hoax and that it doesn't affect us, who cares? You know, it's like, no. Like these people were having conversations and plotting behind the scenes on how to control everything. Everything.
And so I think the chances of it, so the risks of being at odds with some of MAGA are lower. Number two, whatever reason caused them to choose the course they've chosen so far must still be there. I was quite struck, I've said this several times already, the way he tried to shut the reporter down asking about the other day, I thought was a massive tell. It wasn't his usual, you're the fake news, you're asking questions that don't matter. Because as you point out, this does matter to a lot of people who care about him and who he cares about. But if he simply sticks to whatever rationale he has for the course he's chosen, and other news occurs, which has already happened, and it never catches on with the mainstream dominant media, and if he can please MAGA some other way, I think he could stick to this. And again, I'd say, I'd like him, and I'd like the Attorney General and the FBI Director, I'd like them to explain not just the facts of what they did better, but the reason for what they did better. To say there's nothing to see here, we all know, anyone who's followed this at all knows that's not true. So I think that MAGA is very understanding when the president explains things, but he hasn't explained it.
By the time the show ends, another American family farm will shut down. Not because they stopped working, but because this growing distrust of government. And it's actually really bad that people don't trust their government. I missed the country in the 1950s and 60s. I wasn't alive, but this idea that you trust your institutions and they tell you the truth. But this certainly doesn't help, does it, Mark? I mean, for trying to rebuild trust and trying to rebuild integrity in our institutions.
I'm going to propose something to you that just occurred to me. I'd like our shows together to do a joint focus group of young people who care about this issue. You and I will moderate. You and I will moderate it together. Let's recruit 12 young people. Let's get them on a Zoom, and let's let the White House hear their voices, because
Did you hear what he just said? Hold on, I got to play that back. This is the first time I'm watching this. I think we got some new data points in motivations. Keep in mind, this interview was on July. Hold on, you can't see it. I'll make this a little. Look at this. July 10th, 2025. Exactly 2 months before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And he's covering the files. He has other people coming on. And look what they're talking about doing. He's like, what if you get 12 young voices and you get them on, you let them all speak their mind, and you let Trump hear it? Do you guys think that that's something that Donald Trump would want Charlie Kirk to do?
I'm going to propose something to you that just occurred to me. I'd like our shows together to do a joint focus group of young people who care about this issue. You and I will moderate. You and I will moderate it together. Let's recruit 12 young people. Let's get them on a Zoom, and let's let the White House hear their voices, because the fact that young people care about this more than older people, which you and I are hearing anecdotally all over the place, I'd love to give voice to that, because that is the big issue. And again, I'm not minimizing the responsibility our society has to the victims at all, but the longer term issue that runs parallel to that is trust in government, and it's a thing that needs to be put in sharper relief. Younger people really care about this more than older people in general, and the reasons for that relate, at least in part, to their incredulity that a government, particularly a government if they're MAGA, who they voted for and trust, could so fundamentally betray what they thought was going to happen and should happen. So let's get it set up. I love that idea. And
let me just elaborate more. Is that this is a
he loves the idea. Charlie Kirk loves the idea of recruiting young people and having them speak up about Jeffrey Epstein so that Trump can hear it. Well, if Charlie loved that idea just 2 months before he was assassinated, why isn't TPUSA doing it? I'll sign up. If TPUSA wants to start having events, if they want to expand, if they want to climb out of this hole that they've put themselves in, if they want to prove to everybody that they're truly trying to fulfill Charlie's legacy and make him proud and carry on and carry the torch, then I challenge them to find 12 people, myself included, and bring us on tour so we could debate with people about Jeffrey Epstein. I just don't want Dan Flood there. I don't want Rick Cutler. I don't want Brian Harpole. I don't want any of those guys, Terrell Farnsworth. Like, we got to be able to bring in our own team. You know, not because I think that they killed him, just because they failed. Like, they had one job. Not Terrell Farnsworth, but the security team. They had one job, and that was to keep Charlie Kirk alive. And they failed miserably. So, no. If Turning Point USA wants to bring me on for this idea to go around and they want to get me and 11 other people to go around and talking to kids about Jeffrey Epstein and how they feel about the files, we don't even got to talk about him. I won't even talk about Charlie and what happened. Anytime someone asks, you think Tyler Robinson did it? Next. Just keep it on the files. I won't say one bad word about Erica or anybody. I won't have as much of a reason to, because they'll actually be doing what they should have been doing the whole time. And that's carry on Charlie's legacy the right way, the real way, the honest way.
Generation that they view they have been wronged by every power institution as long as they have been alive.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so they saw Trump to be different in that way. Please, Mark.
Well, the reason I want to do this so much is because it's crazy. We live in a society with all this media, and you've not heard that a single place, right? Like one or two voices maybe on your show, my show, somebody you and I have talked to. But the country needs to see 12 young Trump voters saying, Mr. President, this is wrong. And here's why. Here's why we feel so passionately about this. That voice needs to be put in sharp relief. It needs to be heard. And I'd like the president to hear it, because I suspect he hasn't.
Anybody know who this guy is? I don't even know who he is. Mark Halperin? I got to look him up. I have no idea who this guy is. I want to have him on my show, though. I would love to talk to this guy.
I want to keep you for another segment here, Mark. And again, this is important, and I'll tell you, it's a more structural issue, because what I am concerned about, and I trust everyone. I trust Cash and I trust Bongino, and I know them quite well.
Yeah, of course.
But I care about keeping the coalition together as a MAGA guy and as one of President Trump's greatest defenders on a daily basis.
He trusts Cash. He trusts Bongino. He knows them quite well. Do you think if he was still here today that he would trust them now? Especially after how they handled his assassination. Think about it. If it wasn't Charlie Kirk that was assassinated, I'm not even going to say another name. I'm not going to put that out there. But God forbid it was somebody else that Charlie cared about, that we care about, and it was handled the same way. Do you think Charlie would still trust them? Do you think that he would still trust Trump? What do you think Charlie would do? You know, when people ask, and this is one of the arguments that, you know, that you hear from these people that accuse us of being liberals, that, oh, well, you know, like Charlie was their friend. Charlie wasn't the problem. You know, Candace is the problem. Tucker's the problem. They would have just taken one of them out. No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. Because Charlie was the conduit. He was the one that brought everybody together. He was the voice. He had the platform. If something happened to Tucker or Candace or anybody else and Charlie was here, he would be freaking the loudest voice in the room. He'd be storming the White House. What are you going to do? He'd be going up to Pam Bondi. He'd be going up to Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, anybody else. Joe Kent. He'd be going to Joe Kent saying, are you sure there wasn't foreign involvement? I don't know. I tried to look. Cash told me not to. Charlie would be like, what the fuck are you talking about? He'd be going to Cash. Did you really tell Joe Kent not to look into this? That's what Charlie would be doing. And I don't want to speak in ultimates, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know, you know what I mean? Like I always say, but there's I personally believe, in my opinion, that there is a very, very high probability that if what happened to Charlie happened to anybody else, and it was handled the way that his assassination has been handled, that Charlie would be the loudest voice in the room going up to all of his friends saying, "What the fuck are you doing?" Chat, put a 1 in the chat if you agree with me.
This multi-platform that I am concerned that the coalition that we have built, especially under 30, is going to be put in jeopardy. And we'll learn a lot this weekend. This weekend, we have our big event. We have 6,500 young people coming from across the country this weekend in Tampa, Florida. And we're going to learn a lot when we're there.
Yeah.
And so if you want to come to the focus group down there, Mark, come on by. It's
maybe I will. Every time I read the list of who's coming, it appears that everyone you and I both know will be there except for me. So feeling a little left out.
Wait, when did he? Hold on, I missed
We'll
that.
learn a lot this weekend. This weekend, we have our big event. We have 6,500
Oh, he's talking about that
young
weekend.
people coming from across the country this weekend in Tampa, Florida. And we're going to learn a lot when we're there.
Yeah.
And so if you want to come to the focus group down there, Mark, come on by. It's
maybe I will. Every
Sorry,
time
I thought I
read
missed
the list
something.
of who's coming, it appears that everyone you and I both know will be there except for me. So
well,
feeling
then
a
you
little
have to
left out.
come in. We'll give you a room. Come do the press.
It'd be
focus
awesome
group.
to do that on stage.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, again, I don't know how to run a focus group, so you'll have to teach me. I'm not being sarcastic.
We'll do it together.
It seems as if it's an art to be able to run it as much as it is a science, right? Because you don't want.
Yeah, it is.
And guys, do me a favor. If you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you want to support the channel, you could become a member. You could gift memberships. After this, I said at 10:30 that I was going to do a members only live, but since I was a half hour late, I'm going to start it at 11, and I'm going to be doing a Q&A. I'm going to pull people's comments to the screen. Sometimes I send some links out to some of my fellow creators to come on. Kevin came on the other day, Kevin from Web. We had Ali Top Files. I was trying to get American Discourse News tonight. I don't know if she's gonna. Of course, Kevin, Ali, anybody else, they're welcome to join again if they want. And we have a lot of fun. We get really personal. It's we keep it very light. Like I said, members get to be a part of the show as well. And, it's going to be fun.
It is. And I've done hundreds of them. So I wouldn't say I was great in the beginning, but I get how to do it now.
You said something briefly on the Megyn Kelly program. The media would have kind of a straight shot here at a story with Trump, right? Here's this Epstein thing that has some velocity. Here is Trump. Why has the media ignored this for so long? What is that all about? I mean, I don't want to try to get into like the dark, wacky stuff, but it's just true. The media, the mainstream media, not internet media, seems like meticulously uninterested in this.
It's been a mystery to me for the entire time. There are dark possible explanations that I don't want to give voice to necessarily. Perhaps I will as I ramble here. I don't know. It's an incredible story. And currently there are stories about the quote unquote divisions with the MAGA base, because of course they love that. But why the press is not covering a story about the documented abuse of children and the politics of it, of how it's gone this long. And you've got all sorts of Trump angles that are appropriate to discuss. So I don't know. I'd say the same thing about the Joe Biden acuity thing and the doctor taking the fifth. If I were running a news organization like the New York Times or NBC News, with the exception of continuing to cover the tragedy in Texas, I would have led with those two stories. Those are massive stories, and yet they're barely covered today. And I normally can explain the press's behavior. I can't explain those two. I cannot.
So more broadly here, I want to talk about on the Democrat side. Is there any strategy on the Democrats to try to be interested in this, or are they too also? What are you seeing?
Jamie Raskin, your favorite House Democrat, I believe. I know you like Nadler too, but Jamie wrote a letter with 5 or 6 other House Democrats.
Is he a creep and a pedophile? There has been a yearning in the right-wing base that there has been some pedophilic activity that has not been held accountable. As you know, that has been a legitimate concern for over a decade. And then number two, that he probably was an intelligence asset either for the American government or
Oh,
for
he's talking about
MI6
Epstein now.
or for the
and
Saudis
his own
or
theories.
for Mossad or whatever, right? We don't know. Number three, of course, the way he died, which was not exactly transparent. And then, of course, like he's a billionaire, or allegedly. So there's this populist thing, which is like, oh, if you have money, you can buy your way out of no matter what evil actions that you are in.
And that the elites will protect each other.
Yeah, no, that's right.
To allow them to get away with things, and no one has documented the full impact of the failure for a single Wall Street executive to be indicted after 2008. No one has documented how that affected the psyche of the American people. But this is of a piece with that. And one of the things that I work as hard on as anything as a journalist is I've lived in Boston, Washington, and New York my whole life, okay? But my obligation is to not reflect the point of view of those three elite places.
Important.
Again, I'm not familiar with this guy. I wasn't all into politics before I got into this. It wasn't until I started really digging into the files a little over a year ago that I really started getting my knowledge up on who's who. So there's still a lot of people that I'm not that familiar with that I should probably know. But I'm really curious. I saw somebody comment just now about this guy, Mark Halperin. And I want to see what he's saying about the Charlie Kirk case now. Let's see if his channel. Next up, Mark Halperin. Let's see. I want to see if there's a recent video on it. If he's talking about it. Well, let's see if he has what his take is on Candace or Tucker. Oh, let's see. This should be good.
Candace Owens. Candace Owens has a huge platform. Most people who get attacked by Candace Owens huddle with their PR people, and the PR people say, don't attack her, don't attack back, because if you attack back, she's just going to escalate it. It's confined to the bubble of Candace Owens, and you just don't want to take it on. So leave her alone. But every so often, Candace Owens attacks someone so vociferously that they feel, all right, we got to fight back. Okay. Now, in that category is my friend Jessica Reed Crass, who's written about Candace Owens in her Substack, friend of Hogan's as well. And in that category is now Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk has been savaged by Candace Owens. Candace Owens is accused her of murdering her husband. Candace Owens, they had a summit and they met and nothing came of it. And now Candace Owens is back to talking about Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk, I don't care what you think of.
Nothing came of it? What do you mean nothing came of it? They had a meeting and we found out that Erica Kirk has Charlie's. Well, we knew that Erica Kirk has Charlie's phone, but we found out from that meeting that Charlie was texting Dan Flood and Andrew Colvette that he thought that people were going to kill him right before he was killed. That's what came of that meeting. How is this guy not even mentioning it? He's really saying, oh, they sat down and now Candace is attacking Erica? Really?
Charlie Kirk. I don't care what you think of Erica Kirk. This is a woman who has been treated in the National Town Square. It's just shameful how she's been treated. And yesterday she reached a breaking point in general. And with Candace Owens, she went on Charlie's podcast, in which she appears on occasion, on which I appear on occasion. And here's what she said. This is Erica Kirk on Charlie's podcast yesterday. 119, please.
In this culture we're living in, absorbs disagreement as a form of personal
He's pushing
betrayal.
this shit? You gotta be killing. You gotta be kidding.
Into a moral crime.
Yo, this
worthy
is
of
wild.
punishment. And here's what I've realized through all of this, truly, having lived through quite literal hell these past 7 months, if you strip someone.
Now, is he gonna be like Charlie? Is he gonna be like Charlie and play a clip from Candace too, so we could hear both sides? Or is he just gonna, like, that was from a 9-minute scripted speech after the whole White House correspondence psyop. All right, let's see. I don't know who these other people are now too on the stage. Let's see.
Okay. Everything she said is very true, and themes we talk about here. And I just feel so horrible for her and what strength she showed in saying that. But again, the Candace part is key because
This guy's
Laura Loomer's
definitely
not
pushing the
against
feds
Candace. If you
slow.
go read Laura Loomer's Twitter account, you'll see quite a bit about Candace Owens there as well. If you guys were my consultants and Candace was attacking me, and I said I got to fight back, what would you say? Should you say, yeah, take on Candace? Or would you say, don't take on Candace? Melissa?
I would say ignore her. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't, but that's different. I agree with what Erica Kirk did. I think that she handled it very well.
Because why?
Because first of all, it felt like she needed to get that off her chest and she needed to say that. And she needed to bring it back down to a human level. And I think that there are a lot of people who are incredibly sympathetic to her. And I disagree with everything that her husband stood for, but I feel horribly for her. And watching what she's been going through, seeing her face as they whisked her out of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, it's terrible. It's terrible. And people do need to be reminded that there's a human element to this. Now, look, Laura Loomer has attacked me on Twitter and like, I could care less. And like, I didn't respond. Who cares? But, you know, so if it's, I think that like you're a different case. If Candace Owens goes after you, I would ignore it. You've got plenty of friends and with big followings who would have your back, but like, why engage in the nonsense?
Just I loved what you just said, although you did not disagree with everything.
All right, we get the point with that one. Hold on. Yo, I'm really winging it here. I swear, I never. That's that first clip with Charlie where I got introduced to this guy. That wasn't even the clip that I was planning on getting. I thought I was getting another one, and then I just went with it. And now it's like, this is interesting. Yo, I couldn't have planned this freaking live better. All right, now we saw what this guy's stance was on the files just 2 months before Charlie died. Now let's see what his stance was 4 months ago. When this video come out? February 10th.
Hogan, what was your first job in politics?
Mike Huckabee, working in communications for then governor of the state.
Oh, we're off to a good start.
Arkansas. One of two
Sarah
Huckabees.
Sanders was in college at the time.
Yes, exactly. Melissa, your first job in politics?
I was the communications director for a statewide bond referendum, the Transportation Bond Act in New York. It was very sexy, let me tell you.
Did you win?
It did, and it had been defeated the 2 times it was previously tried.
Yeah, we call that the DeRosa magic.
And great work, by the way, because New York is known for very good transportation.
It is indeed. If you want to be in on this conversation on a variety of topics, we're going to span the globe here. Please raise your hand. If you're watching on X or on YouTube, you may not participate directly, although someday you'll come on the platform and you'll. And customs enforcement, customs and border protection, and the immigration, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. The heads of all those folks appear before the House Homeland Security Committee. They will get lots of questions, including maybe about the Democrats' proposals of how to change the procedures of ICE, see what they think of that. Democratic Women's Caucus press conference at 11:45.
Hold on. Let me run the transcript real quick. Yeah, you know what? I'll show you guys something cool. I take the transcript. I'm like giving the goods right now to the ops, but it's okay. Because you guys could do this too. While that's cooking, so I'm analyzing the transcript. Oh, wait. Where's the chat? I'm analyzing the transcript and I'm getting links. Wait, why didn't it give me the link? It was supposed to give me the link. Why is this happening now? What did it say? 5 minutes in? All right, so it's going to get good now.
Let's start with Epstein. Yesterday, a number of members, including the two most prominent faces of the House legislation that opened up the Epstein documents, Congressman Khanna and Congressman Massey, went to the Justice Department and they started reading through the documents, which were advertised as being unredacted. And what they found is a lot of redactions. And what they say happened is these were redacted by the FBI, who then gave them to the Justice Department. And the Justice Department's view was, well, these are how we got them, so we're just going to let you read them redacted. Some stuff has been unredacted, incredible, historic. I don't know if the founders ever anticipated this. Co-equal branch back and forth on X, where Ro Khanna and Massey are complaining about the documents, and the Deputy Attorney General's subtweeting them and saying, no, here's the deal. And some things were redacted further.
So basically, he's just talking about how they're passing the buck, the Republicans and the Democrats. The Republicans have the files. They're all redacted. They're like, oh, well, we didn't even do these redactions. This is how we got them. So I guess we're just going to have to put them out, how we got them. Yeah, fat chance. Fat chance.
But as more members, including Jamie Rath.
I mean, I'm sure that the Democrats did do a lot of the redactions, but this idea that the Republicans weren't in on it with them, like this wasn't like a uniparty coordination behind the scenes. I'm sure the redactions of the Epstein files was a bipartisan event, is what I'm trying to say.
Asking others go in, they're finding there are redactions. So, Melissa, are we going to see more unredactions? In other words, will this process continue on a rolling basis, or what?
I think at a certain point, the DOJ, it's going to behoove them to just get rid of the redactions other than the names of the victims and re-release them, because now you're going to get it.
Meanwhile, they did, as Thomas Massey said, they did the exact opposite. They redacted everybody that was involved with Epstein, and they released the names of the victims. And we still haven't seen any accountability. And then Amanda Ungaro, Melania Trump's ex-best friend, starts going on X about how she's going to spill the tea and throw Melania under the bus for everything in Trump. And then Melania comes out and she's like, I think that the women should have a voice. I think that they should be able to testify. Yeah, it's all a crock of shit. Everybody's just trying to cover their own ass. All these people. It's disgusting.
I would be surprised if he survived. What about Mr. Lutnick? I wonder how this would be playing out if he hadn't lied about his relationship with Epstein and the fact that it continued. What he said was just wrong, and he said it emphatically. He said he had one meeting with Epstein in Epstein's home, his neighbor. He left, never again. And then he had a lot of associations with Epstein after that. I wonder how people would be treated if he hadn't lied. The left is inflamed about this. As Melissa said, a lot of people are saying, why isn't he being called to testify? Hogan, are you comfortable with how this is being handled, including all the Commerce Department will say is this is the liberal media trying to distract from how great the Trump administration is. Are you comfortable with how Howard Lutnick has handled his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Are you comfortable with that?
This is not a cop-out. This is a literal question for you. What is the timeline there? Is it after the pedophilia, after the jail sentence? And what was there, like, give me a little bit of backstory, because I don't know the whole context.
He was in business with him. They signed some legal documents together.
Guys, I know we gotta. I'm seeing a lot of new names in the chat right now. Just please, no hate speech or anything that could be confused as hate speech. It will be taken down. I don't want anybody to be timed out. I'm trying to share good information and give honest and objective perspectives. But this is also not an echo chamber.
He tried to go visit him at the island with his family. He worked with him on trying to block some construction project in their neighborhood. Lots of email exchange, including going to try to visit him in the island. It's not clear if he did or not, but all this is after his conviction, his guilty plea.
Listen, I don't know the nature of that relationship. I'm just taking what you say as gospel here. I think anybody.
It wasn't you, Bob. Don't worry.
There needs to be conversations and questions had, undoubtedly.
Melissa, if you were advising Howard Lutnick, would you tell him to just keep stonewalling and hope it moves on, or something else?
I think if I was advising Howard Lutnick, I would say keep stonewalling, because once he resigns, his life is over. So I think like he's trying to whistle past the graveyard, and his hands are his fate is in the hands of Donald Trump. And so the question becomes, is it becomes such a liability that Trump offsets?
See, and this is great because they're asking about what people should be doing, how they should be testifying. Howard Lutnick did end up giving a deposition, but it was off camera and it wasn't even under oath. So what does that tell you?
But Trump has a lot of affection for Howard. And so I don't know that he's going to move to do that. So I think if they can get away with it and move the conversation to somebody else. But I mean, if Howard Lutnick resigns or does something, like, he's done, he's canceled, it's over. So, you know,
and he's gonna, you hit on something, Melissa, that's right. Trump likes him. Trump thinks he's done a great job too. So I'm gonna be interested to see how that plays out for sure.
Here's what I'm just amazed. I read a lot of these stories. I don't read every one.
Okay, now I just noticed a comment. Somebody in the chat said, how would the Democrats release the files if Donald Trump had them at Mar-a-Lago? Like, just think about what you're saying right now. You don't think, if Donald Trump stole the Epstein files, you don't think that the Democrats would have been all over that, saying that that's what he took? Like, guys, just think. You got to do better. Please, please, please. I want to read the chat. I want to hear your opinions. I want to, like, share the input. But, like, there's got to be a little common sense. You got to do a little bit better than that. Like, this is what I mean. The people, like if you're on the right and you just hate the Democrats and you just whatever, it's like you make every excuse in the book. And that's exactly what the Democrats do with Trump. And this is the problem that we have. This is the disconnect. Just detach. None of these people are your friends. None of them are your friends. I can promise you. They don't care about you. They don't care about your kids. You don't have to go around defending them or try to vilify people. All right? Just keep your faith in God. Trust the truth. Be honest. Be objective. And the truth will set you free.
But I've not seen this in any story. Okay, the president, people were mystified. What's the president protecting? Is he protecting himself? Is he protecting a member of his family? Why did he oppose disclosure? And then Marjorie Taylor Greene said, the president told me he's opposing disclosure because he wants to protect his friends. That's what Marjorie Taylor Greene said after talking to the president. Now, you can say whatever you want about Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's actually a pretty reliable narrator. Maybe not when it comes to space lasers, but when it comes to what happens on planet terrestrial Earth, pretty reliable. Howard Lutnick did a podcast interview where he said, I had this one interaction with him. He showed me his massage table. My wife and I stormed out, and we resolved never to be in the room with him again. Now, it's an interesting Clinton-esque phrasing. Maybe if you're at the beach with him, you're not in a room, so that's okay. Anyway, if I'm Howard Lutnick and I know that I've got all these email stuff with Jeffrey Epstein sitting there, okay? Again, I just amazed no one's talked this through the way I'm doing it that I've seen. So you're Howard Lutnick. You know you signed a business contract with Epstein. You know there's email exchanges about trying to keep the Frick construction project from ruining your neighborhood. And you know you emailed him to say, can my family come visit your island? Okay, and your boss is the president who controls whether the documents are released. Presumably.
Kelly Raybon in the chat. Shout out to Kelly. It's funny, I was talking about you earlier. Wait till you guys see. If you guys are just tuning in now, when you see the beginning of this live, you might piss yourself. You're probably gonna laugh, as you should, because I really make a fool out of myself. And you know what? I was just realizing. Okay, I said I was gonna switch it to members only. I'm going to go about 20 minutes. 11:15, I'm going to switch to members only. And the start of members only is going to be the recorded rant that I did not stream because I was in preview mode. So you guys will be able to watch it while I'm doing what I got to do to get myself situated. And Kelly, if you are not busy and you want to join, I will send you a link.
Someone should ask Howard and maybe the president. Did Howard ever say to you, "Hey, Mr. President, buddy, Donald, don't let these documents come out because I'm on the record saying my relationship with Epstein ended, and there's a paper trail as long as the Commerce Department aquarium." I don't know how long that is, but it's long. So showing that I had contact with him. Isn't that obviously what happened?
I mean, who knows? But some version of that very well may have happened. But, I think that, first of all, what's happening with this Epstein file disclosure on principle, I think is very dicey territory, because you're releasing everybody's names, everybody's emails, all of these things for people who are not found guilty of committing crime, and then letting them be hung in the public square. And I think it sets a very dangerous precedent. And so for all of these people who were not convicted of committing crimes, they never thought any of these things would see the light of day. So they were safe in making whatever public statements you saw. And it's not limited to Howard Lutnick, right? There's a whole slew of them.
Including people who are the president's enemies, and including other people who are the president's friends. Hogan?
I'm not trying to compare Billy Graham to Howard Lutnick, but it would be like, Melissa, this is the question, I think, and the concern of so many in and around this process is, if you release all the files and you're like, Billy Graham was this Christian leader was in the Epstein files, what? And then you read it and it's like, well, they held a Bible study and he was trying to help him come to Christ. But that wouldn't be the story. The story would be Billy Graham's in the files. You smear so many people's reputations and names if the context isn't provided. And you know, and I know, members of the media don't care about that.
Of course. Now, look, people try to draw the line between pre-guilty plea and post. Yeah. But many people, I can tell you this as a matter of fact, many people, and this might apply to Howard Lutnick, they might have dealt with him and not known that he ever was in jail. Sure. Or they may say, oh, this is a minor offense. Obviously, it's not an issue, but they didn't Google it, right? They didn't Google it. They don't know the details. But Howard said, the difference with Howard is he said, pardon me, Secretary Lutnick, he said, everybody calls him Howard, so I've fallen to that. He said, I had one dealing with him and then never again. That's why I think that this is worse for him than it would be for other people. All right, we got to move on because we cannot spend the whole show on Epstein, even though many would. But one more Epstein thing. Maxwell takes the fifth yesterday. Her lawyer continues to say, give her clemency, and she'll tell everybody that Bill Clinton and Donald Trump did nothing wrong, and then tell, quote unquote, the whole story. What crap that whole thing is. What happens next, Hogan? What happens with her? She's in her minimum security prison that I pretty still mysterious who decided to send her there. What happens to her now? Is there more acts in this drama?
I don't know anything. I mean, she's already given her testimony when it mattered most, and it had.
Like, we don't even know if Ghislaine Maxwell is still in prison. Remember that when those pictures started circulating? I don't know if they were real or not, or if they were modified. But we haven't heard her name in a while, right? Remember there was all this talk, is she going to get a pardon? Is she going to get this? Is she going to get that? And now, no one really talks about it anymore. I wonder if she got off easy. Hold on, there's one more clip. It's suggesting that I play. Let's see what this is. It's short. And then if there's any supers, I'll read them, and then we'll wrap it up.
Morning. Question for Melissa and Hogan. Thank you for being part of Two Way.
Thank you. I was kind of wondering if you guys think that the issue of special interests is becoming more of a campaign issue this cycle than typically, because it just seems like everybody's on some track with some different special interest group that's causing all their problems.
Hogan.
Interesting, Diane. I appreciate the question. I find it the opposite. I've not heard a lot about special interests on the campaign trail yet. Doesn't mean they won't bring it up and have those conversations, but I think it's going to center around the economy, border security, immigration. I think corruption will be part of it too. Special interest, I'm not entirely sure, unless it's under the rubric of, some elite class is a special interest, or these guys who get caught in corruption and never get accountability or justice, or never face any punishment. That's a special interest group. Something I don't see it as necessarily pockets of special interest, because the president's kind of gone after people like drug companies. He's gone after big companies for buying up houses. He's gone after some of those things. Maybe it could be we're breaking up special interests.
Is this guy trying to say that the Epstein class is not special interests? Really? Like, who is Trump really gone after? Keep in mind, how many years has it been since Epstein didn't off himself? And there's been no arrests. None. Wild.
Attacking them head on, maybe, but I just haven't seen a big movement for that. Melissa may have a different take. I haven't seen much conversation about it.
Melissa.
I see it in Democratic primaries more because the Bernie Elizabeth AOC wing of the party, it's created the civil war, the Fight Club. They think it's their moment to take over the Democratic Party, and they've created this narrative of like the corporate Democrats, which is really just code for moderate Democrats, and they use that as their cudgel. And so I saw it firsthand in the New York City mayor's race, which it's actually quite hypocritical because they have their own billionaire backers too, but they try to do this us against them dynamic where they make it that if you're not a total extremist DSA-er, anti-Israel, crusader, that you are somehow bought by the millionaires and billionaires and the special interests, and you're controlled by them. And so I see it in the primaries within the Democratic Party. But to Hogan's point, I'm not sure how it plays out yet in the general elections.
Diane, where are you seeing it? What made you ask the question?
It just seems like, obviously with the Maha thing, that's all what it's about. But
yeah,
we'll hear like the people in ag complaining about the meat packers and the fertilizer companies. And they have a lot of complaints about, they want antitrust action taken,
Screw this. All right, guys. It is now 11:04. You know what? Let me see if I can find that other clip that I wanted to. Let's finish strong. No, that's not the one. Oh, wait. Ooh, this one might be good. This isn't the one either. But this is from September 3rd. September 3rd. 1 week before Charlie was killed. It says, huge Epstein bombshell. List to come, but there's a twist.
We're here at the Bitcoin.com studio. That is the Bitcoin.com studio. So it's been, say, a week or two, probably, since we've covered the Epstein situation. We were covering a lot of other stories. And the media, they were waiting for this. You see, Congress, they brought in a lot of the Epstein victims, and it's undoubtedly terrible what Epstein did to the underage high school girls and groomed them and sexually abused them. They're bringing in all of these Epstein victims. Interestingly, one of them is a man, so that's breaking news, at least to me. I don't quite know all the details surrounding that. But NBC News thought they had their moment. And as the media, they want nothing more than to be able to tie this to Donald Trump. They bring all of these Epstein victims, one after the other, and they have their big moment. The media is just waiting for a metaphorical kill shot on Donald Trump. Amazingly, of all the questions they could ask, this is the one. But in some ways, I'm kind of glad they asked it. In kind of a sick and twisted way, I'm glad they did. I'm glad they were able to air it out, because this was a swing and a miss and a media loss right here. And this kind of goes to show that there's a lot of misinformation and half-truths that are circulating around this entire thing, especially in the proximity of President Trump, especially. So here it is, NBC News, ready to go. Try to get Donald Trump. We got him dead to rights. We got the panel. We got them all lined up. This is going to be it. The NBC producers, they're waiting and they're waiting. We're going to have our moment. We're going to play cut 400.
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
No. No. The answer is no. No, President Donald Trump was not involved in any of that stuff. Period. Hard stop. So anticlimactic. No. No. This is Cut 401. This is another one of the Epstein victims. Several of us as a team of survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them, and now together as survivors will confidentially compile the names. Play Cut 401.
Several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved.
So, there is ongoing reporting, though. This is why you got to be very careful with this stuff, everybody. You saw this with the Jerry Sandusky case in Penn State. You got to be very, very careful with situations like this, because you can get a bandwagon effect where a lot of people use half-truths to be able to get money from a guy that obviously had a lot of assets. So you got to have a lot. You got to pursue evidence. But you saw right there with the other previous clip. I just got to replay this anticlimactic one. You got to see this big wind up from NBC. We got to replay Cut 400. Replay Cut 400.
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
I could watch that on repeat. That's the entire media narrative poof. By the way,
see, and a lot of people get mad at me when I say it because I've said the same thing. I know that there was things in the files where there are allegations about him. I'm not like denying that or trying to, minimize it or anything at all. But what I'm saying is when I did my own personal research before those files came out, like the real juicy stuff, like the real bad guys, like Trump had connections, but they were mostly financial. Trump has a lot of very strong financial ties, and not just financial ties, but there are mutual friends that Trump has in the files that he is clearly protecting for one reason or another. But as far as allegations go, when I went very, very deep into the Virginia Giuffre case. Now, keep in mind, Virginia Giuffre, she worked for Trump at Mar-a-Lago. That's where she got recruited by Jeffrey and Ghislaine. And she was one of the big whistleblowers to release a lot of names, including Prince Andrew. And she said that Trump always treated her with nothing but respect, that he wasn't one of the bad ones. And to me, that was very telling because Virginia Giuffre was one of the star witnesses of the case. And rest in peace, because she's not with us anymore. Apparently, she offed herself a year or so ago, despite the fact that she said countless times that she wouldn't. She had a known history of substance abuse, but she even moved all the way to Australia to start over and get away from all this. And she had 3 kids. And the FBI in the early 2010s flew to Australia to try to get her to testify. Now, it wasn't until 2015, 2016, around there, that there was a civil case that was getting ready to settle. And she came in to be able to be a part of that case, and she gave a sworn affidavit. And that was where she released Prince Andrew's name. Now, Ghislaine Maxwell said that she was full of it, and she sued Ghislaine Maxwell for defamation. Ghislaine settled. Now, my point is, Virginia Giuffre, the fact that she was in such a close proximity to Trump and that she wasn't afraid to name other names, to me was a big data point saying that, maybe Trump is guilty of certain things. He's definitely affiliated with a lot of people that are guilty of things. But in that case, when you have a witness of that caliber that's speaking out against all these people and not about Trump, it does say something. And you can't just blow up and go off and put the spotlight on speculation that's in the files and then ignore the words that come out of a victim's mouth and the other victims as well.
If the answer was yes, we would have heard this years ago. If Biden would have been sitting on files that showed Donald Trump compromised with anything Epstein, they would have released this a long time ago. And I'm just going to be honest, with a lot of these movements that we see, we saw this with Sandusky, we saw this with others, and Michael Tracy on Twitter, quote, the British model and socialite who stayed in contact with Jeffrey Epstein into her 30s and who was ruled by a judge to have endured no illegal sexual activity is currently speaking at the big Epstein press conference. So you get a lot of hanger-ons, you get a lot of bandwagon effect, you get a lot of people in moments like this that are going to try to either get money or try to ruin somebody's character, and especially they'll try to ruin Donald Trump's character. And you saw on NBC they can't even do that. You got to use discernment. You got to use prudence. So you got to stay very cautious. Remember the lessons of the Me Too movement. Remember Kavanaugh. Remember all of that.
And now Charlie does have a point when he says you got to be cautious. You got to be discernment. But I will also say that if Charlie were here today and saw those files, I don't think he would be smiling as much in regards to talking about Donald Trump's connections to these people and the allegations against him. You got to remember, this is a week before Charlie died, before the files came out, and he's going by the words of the witnesses. Now, had one of those witnesses came out with a story about Trump, I'm sure Charlie's attitude would be a lot different. You know, he wouldn't be smirking and smiling, you know, the way that he is talking about this. And again, it's a data point. Am I saying that Trump's never done this, not guilty of that? No, I don't know that. I'm just saying I tried my best to be objective. Trump is guilty of a lot of things. I've said countless times and will continue to, that I think he sold us out. He betrayed his base. He betrayed America. You know, he's guilty of a lot of things, and there are a lot of things that he needs to be held accountable for. But just because he's guilty of A, B, C, D, E, it doesn't mean I'm just going to say, oh, he's an R. He's a PDF. You know, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying I personally need more evidence before I cross that line.
And just another one. Again, a lot of the people I'm sure that are presenting at this press conference were harmed and have terrible situations of them. Others, Juliet Bryant is an alleged victim who got money and says she was abducted by a UFO. It's quite a claim. In situations like this, I am coming at this from a perspective. Number one, they're going to try to smear and slander President Trump completely unnecessarily here. You saw this with the fake Wall Street Journal piece. You now saw this with the whole panel. No, Donald Trump wasn't involved. By the time this show ends, another American family farm will shut down. After you're serving a Kirk to get your where, okay, you're abducted by aliens and you were kind of like in your 30s who was ruled by a judge to have no illegal sexual activity. And so this is bad for two reasons. It's bad because the young ladies who were actually abused by this monster, Jeffrey Epstein, are now going to be looped into some of these liars. And that's bad. And then number two, it's also just bad on its merits. There can be a temptation to rush into blind trust and a lack of healthy skepticism. A lot of Jeffrey Epstein victims were adults, and that distinction is important. Not all of them. Jeffrey Epstein absolutely also engaged with underage people as well. I don't know if it's...
All right, there I got to stop because, yeah, he had victims of all shapes, sizes, ages, ethnicities. Like, let's just make that very, very clear. Okay, there were a lot of horrible things that happened to children, and nobody has been held accountable.
It was both men and women, but men seem to be part of the panel, but at least women. My take right now and my approach, and this is my contribution to the zeitgeist, is I cut my teeth. I have the wounds to show during the Me Too movement. During the Me Too movement, I learned a lot. We saw the whole country lose its mind during mass hysteria. So let's not do that again. We need empirical data, and especially if there are people like Michael Tracy tweets, this British socialite, who a judge endured no illegal activity and stayed in contact with Epstein into her 30s. Guys, that's not someone that I think we should be platforming, and we just want the truth. And a lot of this, again, it undermines the actual victims, and then you have a gold rush. And that's the problem. This happens way too often in situations like this, is you see a gold rush. From Sandusky to, there's like 50 examples. The Weinstein case, by the way, Harvey Weinstein is a great example. Candace Owens has done some actually very interesting reporting on this. I don't know if I agree with all of it. She's actually really made me reconsider all of it. The point being is that you have.
And we'll just pause right there to point that out, since TPUSA is constantly trying to act like there was this big distance between Charlie and Candace before he died. This video was September 3rd, a week before he was killed. He's plugging Candace, talking about how great her work is, that he doesn't know if he agrees with it all, but he's changed his mind a little bit. A week before. Again, data points.
Have a gold rush in situations like this, where you have real victims at the core who deserve restitution and deserve justice, and then you have people on the exterior who present themselves as real victims, either for attention or money. But the key today, and the big takeaway, is that this was a major swing and a miss for the media. They wanted to try to take out Trump. The Democrats are desperate for a new narrative. And in the most anticlimactic, lead balloon way that I've ever seen on live television, no. Wasn't involved. No. We're going to keep analyzing this, but we're now starting to see the ghosts of Me Too past start to seep into this. The language, the terminology. And I think we got to learn our lessons from the Kavanaugh, from the guilty until proven innocent stuff that we saw. And that's not to say that every one of these individuals is like that, but Juliet Bryan, who got money and said she was abducted by a UFO. I mean, that's an interesting claim. Love to learn more about that. We're cautious, as we should be, because you're dealing with people's, not just reputation, but you're dealing with the truth. And what you do not want, what will invalidate the actual abuse of these victims and the treacherous elements of this, whether it be intel agencies or all the other stuff, will be a bunch of opportunists that gold rush into this in a Me Too way to try to get cash or try to get clicks. Try to get cash, try to get clicks. Like this British socialite model. I don't know who this person's name is. Michael Tracy's reporting. You guys can look at all Michael Tracy stuff at M. Tracy. You got to be prudent. You got to be cautious. But at least my instinct feels a little bit too much like the Weinstein, the Kavanaugh. This whole thing is starting to raise some red flags for me, guys. It's starting to feel like much more of a operation that we traditionally would ask questions about. It's kind of turning into a three-ring media circus. When there is money to be made by accusing people, accusers will appear. So we need to be cautious. We're going to call balls and strikes as hard evidence emerges. But the big takeaway today is that this is a big miss for those people that wanted to take out Donald Trump. And final point, there is a massive multi-billion-dollar Epstein compensation fund. There is a high incentive for people to say they were victims of him. There were real victims of him, 100%. But now we're verging on, we're blurring some lines, like this one socialite who was, a judge ruled no illegal sexual activity, was an adult when she engaged with Epstein, and stayed in contact through his 30s. We do not want hysteria. That's bad for everybody. We are anti-hysteria and anti-panic. Email us freedom@charliekirk.com. The final point is many of them then want to extract money from wealthy people who will undoubtedly get embroiled in the coming fallout. I don't know. This is raising some antennas here. Got a little red flag.
You know, and for those that are just joining, earlier on, I covered a clip where Charlie was interviewing Mark Hepperin in July. and they were talking about organizing something where they would get young conservatives. They were talking about, imagine if we got 12 conservatives to speak their mind and say what they feel and why they're passionate about the Epstein case and the files, and let Trump hear it so that he can act on it. So you're getting multiple perspectives tonight with this. I think that when Charlie said this, it was because there were witnesses that were coming out that were heard from that were not speaking out against Trump, and he viewed that as a win. But I would be very, very curious to know what Charlie's opinions would be today. Not just about the files, but about Trump, about Erica, about how Kash Patel and Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi have handled both the Epstein files and his own assassination, if it was somebody else. And as I said earlier, had it been somebody else and not Charlie, I think Charlie would have had one of the loudest voices in the room. So for everybody that says that they would have just taken out this one or taken out that one, I disagree, because Charlie had the influence. He was connected with these people. He was friends with these people. If something happens to Candace, Charlie will show up. He will be at the White House. He will be on the phone. He would have asked Joe Kent if he did an investigation to see if there was foreign influence. And when Joe Kent said, yeah, I tried, but Kash shot me down, he would go to Kash and be like, what the hell is he talking about? You shot him down? Why? But that is my show tonight. I'm going to be going. If you want to come and be a member, I will be doing a members only after party. We will be hanging out. It looks like I may have a special guest. And if you're in the chat, I will be pulling up all comments. Don't worry. Not just the nice ones. If anyone, tough questions. Like I said, always be objective. Always hear both sides. As long as you are respectful, you will have a voice. But don't be afraid to throw some curveballs or to some tough questions at me or whoever decides to show up tonight. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Again, if you want to show some support, you could be a member and join the members only live, be a part of the show. I'm going to be sending some links out tonight, and we're going to have some fun. Real quick, let me just see. I had a couple of supers here. Hold on. Actually, you know what? Nope, that's not the one. That's not the one. Up. Let me pull this up here real quick. See what you guys have to say. This is like how I got to do it right now because I'm not on StreamYard. When in the members only, I switched to StreamYard, so I pull the comments right to the screen. I heard that there is a plugin that I could do that here on OBS. So I will be looking into that. We got Awakening. I love this community and all the different personalities that come together for truth. Bayes is based. Thank you very much. Like I always say, this is not an echo chamber. I don't hate anybody. I'm not a hateful person. I'm very confrontational as well. So I'm not afraid to hear opposing views or get into it from time to time, which I think may be happening later this week. We'll see. I'm going to talk to Gary tomorrow. Inquisitive Philomath, am I pronouncing that right? Well, thank you and welcome. Thank you for the membership. Thank you for joining. Hey, Bayes, could you check your mic volume? I could barely hear the clip. So when you are on the mic, it's super loud. Oh, sorry. I'm just seeing that now. And Tradman, welcome and thank you. All right, guys. So like I said, I'm switching right over to members only now. And yeah, I still can't believe that I did that earlier. So what was supposed to be the opening rant for tonight is going to get posted tomorrow. But if you're in the members only, you'll be able to watch that right now because I'm going to start with that. But like I always say, guys, thank you very much for joining. Be kind, be grateful, do something nice for somebody, and I will see you later.